What's your business like? Those of you who've got people around you, what are you like with the way you deal with your customers? Something to think about. Would you think that your organisation is as good as it can be in harnessing the energy of your people? Because that's what culture does. Culture's the way we do things around here. Is your organisation really constructive in the way we go about task relationships? Or is it sometimes a bit green, sometimes a bit passive and holding back and not taking responsibility? Is it sometimes a little bit red? Is there any aggression that goes on in your organisation? That's something to think about. I'd like to spend just a little bit of time on talking about how we can create that, because what I've done in my career is transform organisations. So with the tools I use, which are in 21 countries around the world, we know in Australia that 70% of all organisations that measure their culture and then measure it a second time get absolutely no statistical improvement. So people use the tool often, 70% get absolutely no improvement in their culture, which means no improvement in their performance. I've been really fortunate. I've worked with some large companies, worked with a lot of small companies, and I've been the consultant who's had the best returns in Australia. So that's why I enjoy talking to people about it, because I think it's pretty simple. I don't think it's really all that hard, but organisations just can't seem to grab it and run with it and really understand as well as they could. So I want to talk just a little bit about how you might create a really constructive culture, whether you're a big company or whether you're a small operator. One of the first things I think is important is to have what I call an external view. A lot of people get buried in their own business and they have myopic vision around what's going on. Had an organisation, a freight company, and it had everything going for it. It had the aeroplane network, it had the trucks, it had all the infrastructure for years. And they amalgamated with another organisation which should have made them stronger. And they lost $30 million in their first year of operation as a joint company. So I was asked to help that organisation. And when I told them my first strategy, some of the real men of transport told me I was an idiot and there was resistance. I said, what we need to do is invite customers in and get them to sit down and talk to us. They gave in when we did it, and we did it around the country. So the first one I was running was at the MCG, Melbourne Cricket Ground, up in one of those function rooms, a very cold July morning. And we had 50 staff members and we had 50 employees. And they were sitting in round tables, about 10 people on a table, one person customer, one person staff member. And we asked the staff members to ask the person next to them 3 questions. No debate, ask the question, open question, shut mouth, and write down the answers. And the questions were, what are we doing that's good for you? What are we doing that's caused you a problem or a concern? What would you like us to do that we're not doing now? I sat down last and I was sitting next to a driver who's talking to a woman who was running one of the big banks, one of their processes. They were using what's called lock bag next flight facility. So they're spending large amounts of money for this product. And she's sitting down talking to a driver. Now we had a massive problem in proof of delivery. Proof of delivery, you know, something gets delivered and someone signs or whatever they do to make sure it's got there. And this woman's talking to this driver, and she was saying, look, your punctuality is really terrific and that's what we really need, but the other thing we need is security. Now they were using this thing where you had a lock bag, you put the stuff in the bag and you saw it sealed and it went to the other end and was, you know, opened up. She said, our problem with you is security. And I thought, how can this be? And she said, here's an example. One of your drivers, like you, drove up to this bank, which was in Brisbane, and the bank wasn't open. In fact, it was a couple of minutes before opening time. And she said, what do you reckon your mate did with our parcel? oh, look, excuse me, look, I'm going to get booked. Would you mind? So, well, maybe. It's someone who's outside the bank. So when the thing opens, you walk in and you say, excuse me, who do I give this to? So ring up the company and say, what are you idiots doing? 13% of all the freight, all the stuff, was not signed off for. Within 2 months, after we ran focus groups around the country, it dropped to 3%. So there's one simple example of how the outside-in thinking about your organisation, I believe, is critical. So what do I do in an organisation to do more about improving the culture? Melbourne Water is one of my big clients. Massive turnaround. Old bureaucracy turned into a vibrant organisation. When there was a huge boom in building a couple of years ago, engineers were getting poached from everywhere. We had more people staying. Our staff turnover went down. Why? Because the culture had improved dramatically. So what were some of the things we did? When you want to change your culture, the first thing you look at is the outside world, what we're doing, and leadership on the inside. So one of the things I do is to use what's called 360-degree feedback. So there's a tool called Lifestyles Inventory, and it's this red, green and blue stuff. Instead of measuring the culture, it's measuring what people attribute to you. So people might fill in the form, you might think about it today. How would you rate me? Am I an aggressive person? Am I a passive person? Or am I a constructive person in task and relationships? 1,500 debriefs later, I've had a little bit of information and experience on how it works. So helping people get feedback with the tool is really important. But the second thing I do is once we've got a team of managers who have all done the individual debrief, and that takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours with me, I get them together. Now it's confidential information, but have a chat to them and they come and they share. And I think this is vital. Now one group in one of my organisations, which was actually the biggest culture change in Australia, they didn't want to share. No, this is all girly stuff, mate, don't want to do this, you know. So they went to the HR manager and lobbied, we don't want to do this stuff. And the wonderful HR manager said, well, look, everybody else is doing it, why don't you give it a go, probably you won't die. So they came in, and the leader always starts, and I get the leader to put down their what's called a circumflex. And this bloke said, oh look, I don't know about this, I've been thinking about this since he gave me the debrief. I don't reckon I'm like this red stuff, I don't reckon I'm aggressive. And one of the people sitting in the table, I'm not going to say anything here, one of the people sitting at the table said, well hang on, just think about that meeting we had last week. You stood up most of the time, you did nearly all the talking, and you've got a really loud voice, and that scares people. He said, oh, really? And so it went around the room, we talked about it. Now that session went for far longer than any of the others. These people didn't want to be there. Luckily I had lunch, well I didn't have lunch that day, it took an extra hour. At the end of the session, one person who hadn't said much during the day said, I would just like to say to you, this is the best conversation I've ever had with you. I've been working with some of you for 20 years. This is the first time I felt like I can be me, like I am at home, at work. We have to keep this going. Now that group of people and many others, off their own bat, once I have done that, I'm not going to be their mother or father. If I'm telling them what to do all the time, I'm creating green dependence. Tell me what to do, right? They on their own bat, once every 3 months, and this is what I get people in organisations to do, come back together, share their results, give each other feedback on how we're going, how we're improving, how we can do better as a team. Really, really important stuff. So, leadership. I'd like to finish with this sort of thought for you. What are you like? in your team? What do you like in your business? If you're working by yourself, you might have a bit of a problem with this one. Do you stop, pause, and engage people and start thinking about the way we do things? What I found really important is to make it easy for people to give ideas. So what I do in problem solving or planning or whatever is to use different sorts of techniques. One of my favourite tools in my job is a stick-it note. So what happens if you ask someone, what do you reckon we should do? What happens? If you've got a group of people, what happens? What do you reckon we should do? We've got a problem, what do you reckon we should do?
I guess everybody would start giving you their thoughts.
Yeah, but that's not right.
Okay.
What do you reckon? Yeah.
Oh,
Someone dominates, someone criticises. What a waste of energy. The thing to pull the team together is now pulling the team apart. So what I often do is to give people, you know about extroverts, introverts? Yeah, everyone knows about that. The extrovert's going to say a lot, the introverts are going to be doing the deeper thinking. What a waste of time to have all that energy going on and not harnessing it. So I enforce silence at certain stages of planning or problem solving. And I get people to write things down on sticky notes. Total silence. And then place them around the room. And then in total silence, get people to walk around and read them. And I reckon I cut in half at least cut in half the time to make decisions, and I reckon the decisions are better. Yeah? Because people have had a chance to think, ponder, look at other people's, and then see what the common ground is without it being didactic or some people dominating or whatever. I'd like to leave you with this thought. As a leader in an organisation, it's like being a parent. You know you're normal. I know I'm normal. Just a person. Get up in the morning and go to the toilet. I'm normal. So do you. What are you to your staff? You're the person who can make their day. You're the person who can ruin their day. Same with your customers. You can have that influence on people. You can help them grow and develop. You can hold back their growth and development. You can help their confidence, you can destroy their confidence. I reckon you're like the lighthouse on Cape Byron. You shine light on people every day without even knowing it. What's the light you shine on people? Is it the green, the insipid, really low energy, can't do so much, oh, we'll just keep doing it the way we've always done it? Is it the red? Get out of my way, why didn't you do that? That was stupid, what a deal you'd be. Yeah, I expect that of you, you don't know what you're talking about. Or is it that blue light that leads the path for you, for them and the organisation to really flourish? As a leader, are you shining the light that helps people set realistic goals? Are you the sort of person who's helping them to improve? Are you the sort of person who helps them develop as a team? Are you the person who gives them feedback when you need to, whether they've done well or whether they haven't done well? When they haven't done well, do you sit down with someone and you help them improve? And do you build your team? If you do, your culture is going to be strong. If you're in the red or the green as a leader, I guarantee your business won't flourish over a long time. I hope that makes sense, and see you in the blue. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very kind, thank you.
Any questions for Ian?
Ian, how much do you think actually being able to communicate about your culture is important? Because sometimes I feel I may have a perspective on something and others may not, but if I can communicate that, they can enter into my cultural perspective. So I feel I don't always do that in the way I'd like to.
I think the key to communication in any way is getting on the other person's wavelength rather than me staying on my level. So my experience says that to communicate effectively, how do you understand first before trying to be understood? So do you listen well enough? What's the other person's message? Where's the way in to the other person? So for example, if I'm doing a debriefing on a 360-degree feedback, a lot of people don't like that. I had a man one day who was just attacking the tool and attacking me in a very quiet way, but really trying to destroy the whole process. Majorly red. And about, I don't know, 45 minutes into the session, I said, look, hang on, let's forget this for a while. Tell me about your family. Let's talk about your family. And he started talking about his family. He said, oh yeah, my son's a doctor and terrific and da-da-da-da. And my daughter's fabulously terrific in this. And then he said, oh, my second son, year 12 had just finished. He said, my second son, big disappointment, failed. He only got 98.6, didn't get into medicine. But I told him where we went wrong. Now there was an opening for me to have a conversation. 2 years later, that man came up to me and said, Ian, this stuff we've done in this organisation around the red, green and blue has saved my relationship with my family. I almost get a tear in my eye thinking about that right now. Seek to understand rather than be understood. Find the way in. Where is the way in? My philosophy when I'm working with people is open question, shut mouth. Does that help?
It's beautiful advice, and I think resonates. And I was kind of thinking a little bit differently. Like sometimes, how do we actually communicate about our culture in a way that people can receive it? And it does fit a bit with what you're saying, but not exactly. But it's just something I'm sort of exploring at the moment about communication and.
Culture is what we do. It's the way we do things. So how do you do things that makes it easy for the person to receive your message? That's the challenge.
With culture, I hear that term come up a lot and I understand what it means. Is there a strategy or a dot form, point form to diagnose a strategy and then diagnose a culture and then change that culture?
That's what I've been doing for the last 15, 20 years. I love the fact of the measurement, which that tool is, that shows you where you are down to team level. So my philosophy is top down, bottom up, and make it personal. So we include, in my organisations, we include everybody. So we get the culture results back, and every team has their own circumplex, and every staff member comes along for an hour and a half. I explain the tool, and then we do the silent brainstorming or whatever, we come up with ideas. We run workshops in the organisation, not just for managers, but for people right across the board, and they come along and they understand the red, the greens and the blues in their thinking. And they understand that because of the way we do it, in a very personal, down-to-earth, simple way. I'll show Kath and Kim or clip off something like that, and they'll do workshop activities where they've got cards and they've got to be red, green or blue, and everyone feels what that energy is like, where it's going to. Now at the end of the day, they write a few things about themselves. So I try and get people on their own journey, and if you get the critical mass of people thinking about themselves in their own personal lives, and you get the organisation's managers starting to work better in a blue way, you're on the way.
Yeah,
you're on the
absolutely.
way. Yeah.
And what about, because you did mention you go there and set it up, change the culture, improve the culture.
Yes.
But you're not going to other women, that's fair enough. Is there a way, because sometimes it can slip back to the bad habits that were in place before, is there a way of maintaining that new culture?
The way of maintaining it, I believe, is to have the critical mass of people understand it and believe it. So the person who comes up to me, I've been working in, I said in Melbourne Water, 2 years into a program, the person who I first met swore at me when I'm doing the OCI. This is all, well, I won't fill in the gaps, you can work it out for yourself. Why are we wasting our money on this stuff? Same bloke comes up to me and says, mate, this is really helping me with my kids. If it's not a personal benefit for individuals, the culture's not sustainable in that way. How do you make it sustainable? So as a leader, small business or big business, what are you doing to encourage people to act in a way that we want them to act? Do you recognise the good stuff they're doing well enough and reinforce it? Or do you not do that or are you blind to things that are going on that aren't so good? So if someone's in a meeting and they go into the red and start criticising and be competitive and all that stupid nonsense, and you know they've had a really big impact that's negative on the team, do you as the leader grab that person afterwards and say, mate, let's go and have a cup of coffee, let's think about that. Tell me about what was going on there. What were you feeling? What did you notice around the table when you swore at that bloke or something like that? I think it's day to day, minute by minute. Culture's not a program, it's a way of life. What's the way of life you want to choose?
I think you hit it on the head by saying it's got to be something that suits them, that attracts them and interests them.
That's why it has to be stuff that they can watch it on TV, understand it and say, yeah, that's red, that's green, that's blue, you know, so it's reinforced, their knowledge is reinforced. You do that in an academic way, you got no chance. You do that by talking, you know, reality, simple things, you know, people get it. It's really simple, it's just the way we do things. People overcomplicate it. Why do 70% of people who use the tools fail to get any statistical significance? What do you reckon?
They're not following it.
Yeah.
Delivering it in a way where the employees understand it.
They're not making it accessible. People don't see the benefit. It's just another thing. Yeah, we've done TQM, yeah, that sort of stuff. So top down, bottom up, make it personal.
Excellent, thank you.
My pleasure.
Just a quick one. How do you find Generation Y with regard to creating culture in organisations? Are they a leading force now?
I love them. I just reckon they're fantastic. I think that once they understand it, they go along with it, they do it. Yeah, maybe they want a bit more flexibility and stuff like that. You just have to be aware of their needs. And I'd say that we kept a whole lot of Gen Ys at Melbourne Water who were engineers who could have got more money outside the organisation. Time and time again they said, we're staying here because we love the culture. The culture gave them freedom. Not anarchy, but it gave them freedom to express themselves. They were engaged in giving their ideas at a young age. They had a lot to give and we harnessed that. And I don't think that Gen Ys are anything other than people. So I think if we deal with people in a consistent way that's, you know, really constructive, then we've got a real good chance no matter whether they're 75 or whether they're 15. I really don't buy this thing about Gen Ys having to be, we've got to do this for Gen Ys. I think what's great in the blue culture is great in the blue culture, full stop.
I mean, really, we all just want to be understood and heard in the
Yeah.
workplace. And whether you're 18 or 80, it's like an inbuilt need for a human to want to be understood and heard. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah. But yes, there is some flexibility stuff that, you know, Gen Ys want, and I say, great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.